On Nintendo Switch 2, you can play Nintendo Switch 2 games, as well as compatible Nintendo Switch games. On Nintendo Switch 2, you can play Nintendo Switch 2 games, as well as compatible Nintendo Switch games.
A year and a half ago, I discussed how Nintendo butchered the Switch ports of Pikmin 1 and 2. Most notably, they changed a bunch of dialogue for no good reason, and there were quite a few oddities, mostly in Pikmin 2. The physics were pretty off, and there were instances of missing instruments. Well, fast forward to now, they've decided to do it again. The Switch 2 has recently been released, and one of the biggest advertised features is being able to play new and improved versions of Switch 1 games. Unfortunately, it seems that Nintendo has forgotten about Pikmin, as no Pikmin games have received any updates that improve graphics or performance. While that is bad enough if you are a Pikmin fan, the worst of all is that Pikmin 3 Deluxe, which worked just fine on the Switch 1, is now riddled with glitches, including crashes that can make you lose progress. This game is anything but new and improved on the Switch 2, which will definitely be a massive disappointment for fans of Pikmin 3. And the game is basically inferior to the Switch 1 and even Wii U releases of the game. The game on the Switch 2 sometimes borders on unplayable. These glitches were observed by a good few people, and when I gave the game a short run on the Switch 2, it was clear something was up. I was able to recreate all of the mentioned glitches plus discover some new ones in an embarrassingly short amount of time. This video will be cataloging all of the glitches present when you play Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Switch 2. Be sure to subscribe for high quality Pikmin videos weekly, and I would recommend sharing this video, which I don't usually ask for, but this has flown under the radar, and I would like to play Pikmin 3 without it wetting the bed, so try to spread the word about this. Now, it's worth noting first of all that Pikmin 3 Deluxe is still for sale, is pushed a good amount on the Switch 2's eShop, and is still at full price. Now, if a game is going to make €60 of my hard-earned money lost media, I think it's only fair that all the bugs and glitches would also be lost media. However, there are plenty of glitches in the Switch 2 release of Pikmin 3, so much so that it wouldn't even be acceptable if this was getting sold for €5, let alone 60. I thought when I tried out Pikmin 3 it would take a while to find any of these glitches, but when you boot up Pikmin 3 on the Switch 2, it immediately sets the mood as the title screen is laggy for some reason, every single time you go onto it. It did not lag on the Switch 1 or Wii U, and this is mostly a slight annoyance but not really good considering this is the first thing players will see. The lag also makes the title screen rather unresponsive. It floats smoothly on Wii U and Switch 1, so I'm not sure what is causing this sudden lag. Definitely not a good first impression at all. Now, they have actually given Pikmin 3 Deluxe an update for the Switch 2, but unlike most updates, this does not improve the graphics, and this is probably a game that needed this. Pikmin 3 Deluxe runs at 720p and didn't even really use the full capacity of the Switch 1. So playing it on the Switch 2 next to the new flashy 4K games and also the new upgraded Switch 1 games makes the graphics noticeably bad in comparison. To the point where it's actually kind of distracting. It looks like a 3DS game compared to everything else on the system. It's a blurry mess on handheld as well, it's like playing the game with cataracts. Pikmin 3 obviously isn't a bad looking game. In fact, the graphics hold up great, but they definitely need to be upscaled for the Switch 2. Keeping it running at 720p is not giving this game what it deserves. Same thing applies to Pikmin 4, but to a lesser extent, as that game runs at 1080p on the Switch 1, and it still does here, but still noticeably looks worse compared to everything else on the Switch 2. Pikmin 4 probably had some of the best graphics on the Switch 1 and was my first pick for a game to play on the Switch 2, purely because of the graphics, yet due to them not being updated unlike almost every other major first-party game on the Switch 2, the game's graphics look slightly worse in comparison. They displayed Pikmin 4 a good amount in the Switch 2 trailers, next to games that were getting graphics updates, so it does feel like a bit of a cop-out for it to be left completely unimproved for the Switch 2. Now, that's the only issue with Pikmin 4 on the Switch 2, but the same can't be said for Pikmin 3. If you're wondering what that update was for, it was to apparently fix screen flickering. I use the word apparently because it didn't fix shit. If this is the mandatory update that fixes this issue, I don't even want to know what the unupdated version looks like because the screen flickers frequently in regular gameplay. And sometimes it can even be non-stop. This glitch is self-explanatory. In menus or in the middle of gameplay, the screen will just fully distort for a brief moment. It's not really consistent how much this will occur. Occasionally it can be somewhat rare, and by rare I mean every few minutes, but sometimes it can be absolutely dreadful. This bingo bell match I played had the absolute worst example of the screen flickering, as it would happen basically every 8 to 12 seconds. How am I meant to focus on my bingo bell when the game keeps showing me missing those goatsy every 5 seconds? These are usually brief, but sometimes they stick around. Here's a photo from someone on Twitter where this distortion is just kinda stuck to the screen. The screen flickering was so bad that I actually had to double check that I had the update installed, and I did. The update lies and says that this flickering only happens on 2 scenes, but no. It happens everywhere in the game, regardless of if you're in gameplay, a menu, or a cutscene. Models and textures in game would occasionally distort as well, such as this button in the title screen, this bottle, and there was some weird shimmering going on in this gameplay clip. And these are just the ones I recorded. The game actually looks worse compared to the Switch one, as it has frequent graphical hiccups which are really annoying. The bingo bells calm down with the screen flickering, but all of a sudden there's this red glow on my side of the screen which followed me into different matches, and was debatably more annoying than the screen flickering. Winning a bingo bell match consistently seems to make parts of the screen just go black for some reason. The mission results screen always seems to have graphical shimmering and texturing flickering as well. There are a multitude of graphical issues here, and these were just the ones I saw in my rather short playtime, and I was able to gather a countless amount of examples, which isn't good. The game shouldn't have any new glitches and ones that are extremely common. These aren't occasional hiccups that happen once every 30 minutes. Nope. These bombard you constantly throughout regular gameplay the second you start playing the game. I also observed stuttering in the middle of gameplay. It's usually short and admittedly not as common as a lot of the other stuff, but it is still a rather unacceptable thing, and this one more directly affects gameplay. I don't think I have to explain to you why the game freezing up briefly in the middle of gameplay is annoying. Now all of these are bad, but worst of all, we have crashing. I've heard several reports of Pikmin 3 Deluxe crashing on the Switch 2, which led to progress being lost, and I can confirm this game does crash. Now, I've played a lot of Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Switch 1, and never have I ever seen that game crash. So for the game to all of a sudden be experiencing crashes, especially when I didn't even play it for that long, is definitely concerning. This game does crash, and apparently quite commonly as well, which is unacceptable. I've heard reports of it crashing in mission mode, in the middle of days in the story mode, and for me it crashed during Bingo Bell. So there isn't really any consistency or specific spots to these crashes. They can just occur wherever and whenever. This version went from being sloppy to borderline broken because of this. Instead of worrying about whether or not your planning and skills will be able to make you finish the day with a good result, you'll instead be worrying about if you can finish the day at all before the game shits its pants and breaks. Pikmin 3 Deluxe was one of my favorite games on the Switch, so to try and play it on this console that advertised itself as bringing you improved experiences of your favorite games on the Switch 1, only to find that when I try to play Pikmin 3, it's a withering old corpse begging to be taken out the back and shot, is extremely disappointing. A new console will bring in a new wave of Pikmin fans, and what happens if they boot up Pikmin 3 and see stuff like this? They aren't going to know that this isn't what Pikmin 3 is meant to be like. They'll probably assume the game is just busted. It's frankly unacceptable and scummy to still push this game on the Switch 2 eShop when it's in a buggy and broken state. It's not a good look for the Pikmin franchise at all, and I'm hoping this is fixed immediately along with a graphics update to this game. If you are planning to replay Pikmin 3 on the Switch 2, I'd wait for an update, as right now the game actually performs way better on the Switch 1 and Wii U, where it has no weird glitches and doesn't randomly crash and make you lose progress. I guess after muddling up 1 and 2 slightly and keeping Pikmin 3 mostly intact, they decided to go back and batter Pikmin 3 to keep the playing field equal, even though this is probably 10 times worse than what they did to Pikmin 1 and 2. Be sure to spread word of this, as Nintendo probably will not do anything about this if there is zero fuss about it. Hashtag fix Pikmin 3. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for high quality Pikmin videos weekly, or else you won't be performing well on the Switch 2.